What should you look for in a home when it comes to hurricanes and trying to prevent damage?
We're going to tell you about what we learned from Hurricane Ian.
And we're getting started right now.
If you're looking to buy or sell a home in the area, make sure to call, text, or email me. I am a local realtor. My information will be in the description box below.
We hear from people every day and we love it. So the first big thing you want to look out for is drainage. And with drainage comes a lot of things. So drainage is usually going to be better if you're on city water and sewer. And it's also generally going to be better if you're in a gated community. A lot of these communities are built with retention ponds and things like that, and a system in place to help alleviate the water. If it starts getting really high, it can drain into the retention pond. They even have like an emergency drainage system usually built.
Another thing you need to look out for is the flood zone. To be out of the flood zone, you want to be in flood zone X. That means you're completely out of the flood zone. Keep in mind you're still in Florida, so just because you're out of the flood zone doesn't mean that something could happen where the home does get flooded. But more likely than not, you're going to be safe. If a hurricane does hit, you probably won't get flooded. To make sure the home is out of the flood zone, make sure you're looking at the most updated FEMA maps.
One thing a lot of builders and homes will do here is they'll actually elevate the home. That could be maybe putting the home on stilts, or it could be possibly even sometimes almost build like the house like on a little mound, a little hill to help keep the water away from the home. And one thing we were paying close attention to in the neighborhoods we drove through and just watching videos, some of the areas we haven't been to, like Fort Myers beaches, the ones that did fare better were elevated either on stilts or again having kind of like a mound that the house was built on. It just helps keep all the water away from the house. You can prevent damage, storm surge, things like that.
Another thing to look out is what's the house made of. So most Florida homes are going to be made out of concrete block, and they are going to sit on slabs.
Like this home here.
So what that means is that newer construction homes are going to meet certain codes, and if they don't meet those codes, the county is not going to approve, and then you don't get your certificate of occupancy.
Again, another thing we noticed with this is on Fort Myers Beach especially, but also in the Venice area and Northport, is the homes that were wood, they did not fare very well. Places that were more concrete, stucco. We also noticed steel roofs fared better, tin roofs, things like that. More of the clay roofs and things like that did better versus shingles. Those things kind of went flying. Wood homes didn't last. Mobile homes got obliterated. Really sad to see. So I think Hurricane Ian's going to really open a lot of people's eyes to this as far as what kind of construction you have along with the next point,
which is distance from the coast and rivers. As this hurricane showed us, Northport, which is more inland, got flooded from a river. So being by the river, you could also see more effects. And being by the coast, you're more at risk for storm surge. We saw what happened with Fort Myers and Naples, what kind of damage that could do.
And with that, like Venice, we could have been like what Fort Myers was, because originally it was tracking for Tampa, and that would have put it north of us, and then that would have pushed the water in by us, kind of like it was for Fort Myers.
Another thing to look out, which we mentioned at the beginning, is roof, but not only roof material, but the roof age. So the older the roof is, the more difficult it's going to be for homeowners insurance to cover you, or even to find homeowners insurance, and also the more damage you could potentially have if the storm hits. And if you do get it insured, it might cost a little bit more just because of the age.
Another thing you want to look out for in homes, I think, is very important. When we moved to Venice, we wish we had this and we didn't, which was hurricane shutters. Now that's a great thing to have, or hurricane impact windows, just to prevent any extra damage happening to the house, to save your windows, and then all the damage that can cause. It's not just about the window being broke, but the water getting in and all the other stuff. It just could be a really big mess. And if you have that, it gives you a little more peace of mind, a little bit more safety.
Another thing to look out for is the age of the home. So newer homes are built to a stricter building code, so they'll fare better during a hurricane or a storm, while older homes, a lot of times what we see is older homes will be more level to the ground, so flooding, it could potentially be an issue there. Newer homes are usually built up on a mound, so flooding would be a little more difficult there. The materials on an older home are going to be inferior than on a newer home.
Another thing that we noticed after looking at a lot of the damage in the Venice area anyway, from the wind, because that's mainly the kind of damage we got outside of, there was a lot of rain that downpour, but it didn't cause like the storm surge that you got like in Fort Myers and Naples. But I noticed a lot of like the more like open spaces there were, that gave the wind kind of a runway to go ahead and hit something. And when it hits something, whether that be your house, a sign, a tree, whatever it may be, it's gonna get hit harder versus if there's more dense trees, dense houses, then it gives a little bit less runway for the house. And another thing I noticed is even like a runway could be, maybe there's a house here and then across the street there's a house here, but if it's a two-story home, boom, the wind's gonna hit the upper part of that house. I just noticed a lot of that when looking. So that's something to maybe keep in the back of your mind if you're really concerned about hurricanes is, okay, is this home in a really open area? How can I maybe mitigate some issues from wind? Or maybe just I don't want to buy that home and I want to buy something maybe in a little bit more of a dense area.
Another thing is flood insurance. A lot more people are going to want to have flood insurance, and it might even be required for a lot more people that, you know, in the past they weren't required to have flood insurance. And because of Hurricane Ian now, they might be required by their lender to carry flood insurance. And a lot of people, just for peace of mind, might want to just carry it as well.
Two other considerations with types of homes that I think are going to be a little bit different and what people are going to be looking for. Number one, I think condos are going to start to become a little bit more desirable, at least in the near term, just because it puts you, if you're on the second, third story, out of harm's way in terms of the flood. Yes, you still might lose power and things like that, but your actual interior of your property is less likely to be damaged. And it just seems like the vast majority of condo buildings held up exceptionally well because they're made out of, you know, brick concrete. So that helps. But then the other thing,
people are going to be looking differently at mobile homes now just because of all the damage we had. Mobile homes are obviously not going to withstand storms and hurricanes, so people are going to be looking more at those and not have them be their primary home because they're going to get tired of always rebuilding, because hurricanes are not a new thing in Florida, right? We have hurricane season. Hurricanes happen pretty much every year. If you don't get impacted by the hurricane itself, you get the effects of the storms. So some people are going to get tired of rebuilding every time, and mobile homes are just not going to be for them anymore. They might prefer a condo or just a single family home.
Yeah, I think maybe villas even too and townhomes will be somewhat desirable. And I also think, you know, if you're gonna get a mobile home, a lot of people are gonna look at that as maybe like, if I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna be willing to lose it.
Yes.
You know, it's a secondary home maybe sort of situation. And yeah, I don't see as many people looking at that as being desirable for a first home, especially if they've experienced one hurricane, living in one already.
If you're looking to buy or sell a home in the area, make sure to call, text, or email me. I am a local realtor here. My information will be in the description box below.
And that's in the Venice, Inglewood, Northport, or Sarasota areas. We hear from people every day and we love it. If you found the video helpful, be sure to subscribe, turn on all notifications, and live breezy.